All right, guys, welcome to Couch Talks. We're here with Etta and Noelle, and Xyll.
Noelle's right here. Now you can see her face.
Yeah. Today we wanted to talk about Mystery Dungeon.
Yes.
I have not really played it. I've watched Xyll play it some, but I have not really messed with Mystery Dungeon at all. So I will be asking all of the questions and not contributing to much of the conversation beyond that.
Okay.
So, how does what's the concept of Mystery Dungeon?
So, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX is a remake of Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team. But the idea is that you're a human who's been turned into a Pokemon. And you start out not really knowing anything beyond that.
Okay.
And if you have any intention of playing the game, I will not explain to you how that happens.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. But, so when you start out, are you, because you're playing Charmander right now,
Yes.
Are you just stuck as Charmander?
So, you start out and you take a quiz. And the quiz asks you a bunch of, 5 random questions or some number like that out of a giant pool.
Mm-hmm.
And it determines your nature, the nature options are based on the natures in the mainstream Pokemon games, which affect your stats. But, I got Brave as my nature, which is the same one that I got when I played the first one. But the quiz changed, so it sorted me as Machop, and then it let me change that option if I so chose. So I chose to change it to Charmander, because that's what Brave is supposed to be for me.
Okay.
But,
yeah. So, how has the game changed since it's a reboot, a remake, you said? How has it changed, mechanically, graphically, etc.?
I like what they did with the graphics, where it's kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of chunky.
Okay. Chalky, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
It stays stylized. They didn't make it look just like the 3D Mystery Dungeon games.
Okay.
Did. And then the music, I like what they've done, where anything that was an actual instrument, they've made with the better sound quality, but then they also kept some of those, Game Boy Advanced sound options. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've kept some of those in the soundtrack. Other than that, I've seen some quality of life updates. You can... When you hit the end of a dungeon, it just opens all your treasure boxes, which it used to cost money to do that. But the main thing that's nice is you don't have to go unlock them one at a time at the treasure opening shop and stuff like that. One of the things they did that I thought was going to make the game too easy, and it actually turned out to be alright, is whenever you recruit a Pokemon now, it just travels with you for the rest of the dungeon. It used to be you can only have 4 Pokemon on your team at once.
Okay.
I've gotten 7 at once, at most so far. Which sounds like it'd make it way easier, but you then have to keep them alive through the entire dungeon, I think, in order to recruit them.
Okay.
So it's actually become an interesting challenge, because most of them are lower level than you. I get 7, I have 4 teammates who are way below my level by 5 or 10 levels, which I only am at level 15, so it's a lot right now. And yeah, I'm just trying to keep them alive. It eats up a lot of resources, but it's also a fun little challenge.
Yeah.
And then I got to the first boss battle and got put to sleep and just watched 5 of my teammates wailing on the boss, me asleep, and then one teammate basically just spending every one of their turns using items to keep the rest of the team alive.
Nice. Okay. So how does the combat work, speaking of that?
It's turn-based combat. You have 4 spells.
Much like the Pokemon games, Pokemon abilities or whatever?
Yeah. But then you're on this overworld map. And so you can either move once or attack once. And that's your turn.
Okay.
Barring certain buffs and debuffs.
Interesting.
And so, like, you have, like, Ember says you can hit something multiple spaces away, but then it might not do as much damage as something that hits something that's adjacent to you. Then you have moves like Flame Burst that says every enemy that's adjacent to the enemy you just hit takes damage.
Okay, but like, so when you're in the combat, is it a grid then? And you like move around and fight?
Sorry.
Okay, you're fine. You were just getting like talking about the moves specifically, and that's great, and it does change your strategy absolutely. But like the combat, how does that actually work? Is it kind of like Final Fantasy turn-based, where you're just two rows standing next to each other, welling on each other, or is it
no? You
more
move
like Final
or
Fantasy?
attack.
Okay, so it's more like kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics. It sounds like
Yeah.
where you have a grid to move on,
Yeah.
and then you can attack. I mean, of course, tactics you can move, then attack, and then
Yeah.
whatever. But okay, so so that's kind of the gameplay. It sounds like that's interesting. And so outside of combat, what's the game like? You're just going around and exploring and talking to fellow Pokemon.
That is, so I guess you don't really wind up specifically in combat. So what I just described is pretty much the whole gameplay, where you have this map. You don't know what the map looks like. That's part of the mystery dungeon. It gets randomized every time you go to a new floor.
Okay.
And the map's on a grid, and every turn you move one space or attack once or use an item, and the floor's full of enemies and items and whatever else, and you go around and do various things, like somebody might ask you to bring them an item or bring them to a certain place,
Okay.
or your mission might just be to get all the way through the dungeon.
All right.
So,
I mean, okay, that sounds cool. So basically, what we just described is the entire gameplay. So you move
Pretty
around,
much.
you fight, and then you can move around. And okay.
yeah.
So what's the overarching story like? Is it a pretty decent story? I know what few scenes I have seen seemed pretty, campy, 10-year-old campy style storytelling, but
there is a lot of, like, it's oriented towards children. So there's a lot of, like, the big bad that I just met is called Teen Meanies. And they steal stuff out of your mailbox.
I mean,
But despite that, is actually, like, a really, I don't know. I first played it when I was, I don't know, maybe 10? I don't remember when the first one came out now. How old is Pokemon?
I have no idea.
It's as old as me. So, yes, 10.
Okay.
So, I might have all that nostalgia around it also, but I definitely felt like it was a really compelling story once you get past the, like, oh, well, people can't really die because it's for kids.
Okay. Well, what is
all
the
that
story
kind of
though? Like,
stuff.
without spoiling too much, obviously, try to summarize it, because I'm assuming some of
Okay.
you want to play it.
Well, the story is you're a human who's been turned into a Pokemon, and you wake up, you don't know anything about being a human other than that you are one.
Okay.
And you meet this other Pokemon who you become friends with, you start a rescue team, and you start just going on missions, saving other Pokemon, helping them out with stuff, and you meet some... Man, it's really hard not to spoil it, because it's one of those stories I feel like you have to experience the whole thing for yourself. But yes, you meet various friends and enemies along the way, and at certain points you might be separated from other characters for a period of time. And it's very sad at the end.
Okay. So if you were to try to sell this to somebody who just like walked into your department and you happened to be in charge of selling the Pokemon games and they wanted something different but a Pokemon game still, how would you sell that to them?
Well, you get to be a Pokemon, so I feel like that sells itself.
Okay.
It also, it does play very differently, but it still has the core mechanics of the moves and the abilities. But you go out and you explore, and there's more to combat than just choose this move and a target, because you have to position yourself and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. That sounds really cool, actually. Cool. Well, I think that's all the questions I can think of. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh yeah, the other, like, unique gameplay thing is you can link moves together, so that when somebody uses one move, they use all the linked moves. Which means you run out of power points faster, but you can do really obnoxious things with it, like my Bulbasaur has Leech Seed, Sleep Powder, and Poison Powder linked together. So I can basically say, hey, go over there and make that boss really sad right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Alright guys, well, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, or however you choose to digest. Have a magical day, and don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us out. And of course, please give us a share and a subscribe if you're digging what we do around here. Thank you so much.